So here's March. April looks a lot better. It's like,
Spring is busy.
So, voucher approval done. Minutes.
I really appreciate that they've worked hard to catch us up on the draft minutes we've received, and I have had time to look them over, except for the February 3rd one, which just came late in the afternoon yesterday. So I would like to delay the February 3rd approval till next meeting, just so we can look at it. And I would move to approve the March 3rd and February 17th county court meeting minutes.
Second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve county court minutes of February 17th and March 3rd of 2021. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and so noted. February 3rd, we table until next meeting.
Great.
Thank you. Opportunity for public comment. Okay, phone lines. Nothing. This kind of matters anymore. Forward to Dave.
Welcome to AT&T's teleconference service. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. Your access code was not recognized. Please re-enter your access code, followed by the pound sign.
Thanks for the laugh.
Have you had a meeting where it just went through?
To join the conference, as the host, press star. Otherwise, press pound. Please enter your host password, followed by the pound sign.
What likes to mess with them on a regular basis.
There are 2 participants on the call, including you, who are joining your conference as the host. For a menu of available commands, press star pound.
Good morning, Harney County Court here. Who do we have on the line?
It's Edward.
I'm sorry?
It's Edward, in case you have any questions for me.
Okay, Ed. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Okay, so we were, first thing on top of my packet, you guys, is the signing the emails that you approved to approve the mosquito control project. And
Okay.
we have Ed on. You just need to officially make a motion in court and sign it.
May I just eyeball it again? I know.
Same one. You ever get a response from the tribe, Ed?
I have not. I've emailed them twice, but we're gonna be out there in about 2 weeks. I'm gonna go try to meet with them in person, because
Yeah.
I was told that sometimes it's better just to walk in.
Yeah. Yeah, can be challenging, but yeah, good luck.
Well, we have the tribe over here, and they're the same way. Usually they wanna help, but they also are very leery.
Yeah, no, that's same here. I'm just glad we're reaching out to them that way. Shows we tried.
It would be good to have them involved with it too, because,
It's in my paper pack on my desk. I have it. I can get it for you. Okay. Those are just opportunities. To accept the professional services.
Okay, well, I go ahead and make a motion to accept the professional services outline for Harney County Incorporated Oregon Integrated Mosquito Control Program being provided by the Three Rivers Mosquito and Vector Control. The proposal is for 2021 through 2023.
I second.
Moved and seconded to approve the Three Rivers Mosquito and Vector Control integrated mosquito control program for 2021 through 2023. Any further discussion?
Did you have any questions for me?
No, I think you satisfied our questions in the emails that we received.
Well, just so you know, the first 2 years we get stuff going, and what we do is we're just evaluating what we have as far as the actual cost of chemicals and stuff, and then we'll give you the proposed cost for the next year, but it's never above the consumer price index. And the consumer price index each year changes, but it just depends on stuff like gas and chemical costs, and typically it's around 3%, and I've seen it go up to like 4, I've seen it down to 2. It just depends. So we take the actual cost for you guys, not just the normal consumer price. So we take the cost of chemicals, fuel, labor, especially labor nowadays. Everything's going up, and then we'll let you know the second year what that price is, but it's never above that price.
Yep.
So it can go down too. So
That's what we'll bank on.
you know, and I mean we try to keep the prices down to where it's cost plus enough to pay people. We're not like Terminex where we're trying to pay corporate headquarters. So it's covering costs and and employee costs. That's it. We don't we're not really gaining money on it. So hopefully this is going to turn out really well. And one person was asking about the water siting, and so we'll be starting that probably. It says it in May, but we'll probably be starting a little bit early because the season's warming up. But that will help prevent having the fog later on.
So in reality, after the 2 years, there should be less mosquitoes, and the third year should cost less.
Well, yeah, and we'll have to see how it is. We'll be having scrap setting out starting in May, and we'll just see how it is. Because right now we don't know where the big issues are. I have a few people that have hinted to me about places that are causing a mass amount, and we'll see. I'm pretty confident we're going to see a huge reduction at least. So.
Okay, I agree. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. We'll sign her here right now and fax you the copy, Ed.
Well, thank you much, and then I will put you on the list. And you're still going to be the point of contact for County Harney, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to try to keep all three entities, both cities and the county involved, and so we'll copy each of them on anything that's related to mosquito control in the area, because it's basically one big program, separately billed, but we're going to keep it consistent for everybody. So if anybody has questions in the area, residents or whatnot, they can call us, email us, or go to the website, harneymosquito.org. So if they want to tell us they don't want to be sprayed or whatever, want to know any information, they can contact us directly.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good.
Bye. All right. That's it, that's what I wrote. But, now the mosquito.org is not, I think we're gonna try to, so I'll get a hold of it. Webmaster, Cindy never leak, puts it on the
Yeah,
link to
the
that.
link so that people can get a hold of him.
Scheduling community board meetings, so, Crane, we talked about doing on the
I
board.
talked to Matt, in April, his boards, because of budget season, don't meet jointly, and so he suggested we wait till May 17th, where they have a joint board meeting, and then we'll get our most bang for the buck out of public, being there from both boards. So would that work for them?
It would work for me at this point.
6 o'clock.
And she put some text fields on here, that's typically our fall.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah, I
But we
would
did
think-
talk about going back to fields
Pre-season.
pre-season,
after.
so I was gonna, I'll talk with Jeff, and be on him and see if they have enough firm information they'd like to share to communicate, and then set one, and do set one for fields. So fields will be a fall.
When do we do Druzy?
We did Druzy and Riley in the fall.
That was in the fall.
We got skunked.
Seems like yesterday, wasn't it?
So Crane is in May?
Uh-huh.
Actually, last
May
last fall, we
17th
did
at 6
Druzy
p.m.
Riley Fields. And then we were gonna do Crane and Richland Diamond in the spring, which we've done. Except Crane, but no, we don't do that.
May 2nd.
17.
6 p.m. We're hoping prior to that, show up a little early and give us a tour of the new building that they put on out there. And find out what's going on there.
That would be a good idea. Well, we did have this.
I might want to add on a late item, just some of our work sessions that we want to schedule.
Okay. New business, Commissioner Rivera with some NACO updates, and I have one too.
Oh, awesome. Well, let's see. So I actually thought I would take the opportunity to give an overview as well as the specific conference things. Harney County is a member of the National Association of Counties, and normally the NACO Annual Legislative Conference is held in Washington, D.C. in early March, and that focuses on the legislative priorities of the organization. And when any of the Harney County court members go, we also go to Capitol Hill. We meet with the senators, congressmen, Department of Interior, Forest Service, any of the folks that we have a relationship with and that we want to inform them and ask them things. A virtual conference was held this year, and it was spread out across several weeks in March, and it's still even wrapping up. So the information I'm about to share, some of it's just their general broad legislative things, and some is specific to my attendance at them. So NACO's role on legislative priorities, number one is that counties play an instrumental role in the overall public administration and governance of federal, state, and local policies and programs. There are 3,069 county governments in the United States that provide essential building blocks for healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. NACO supports federal policies and programs that equip the county governments with the resources and flexibility needed to effectively serve our residents. NACO policy positions are introduced, debated, voted on by 10 policy steering committees with over 1,400 county officials, as well as the NACO Board of Directors and the full membership. They advocate for additional federal COVID-19 relief in the form of direct, flexible aid to counties of all sizes. So that's, as we know, counties continue to address and mitigate the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic, its financial and public health crisis that we're dealing with, their massive budgetary effects on the governments and the community. And so this latest COVID package is the first one that includes direct payments to counties of all sizes. Because the earlier stuff, Congress, it was a congressional decision. Despite the detrimental fiscal impacts that counties of all sizes faced during the pandemic, only 5% of the nation's counties were eligible to receive direct relief. We had the state of Oregon got relief, and then they decided, how to distribute it to the counties and how long to take to do so, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a big thing that NACO worked on as well as others, and it's good to see it finally. NACO also works to restore the balance of federalism and optimize intergovernmental partnerships. And as we know, the unique roles and responsibilities of counties as essential partners, not just stakeholders in our nation's intergovernmental system, is very important. The system is federal, state, local, and tribal governments. Consistent and meaningful engagement and consultation between intergovernmental partners is vital. We always seek that consultation, and we don't always get it. It would make for better policy. So the county governments are tasked with implementing state and federal policies and regulations at the local level, and we should be included at all stages of the governing process. That's what's finally happened with the Blues Intergovernmental Council. The Blue Mountain Forest Plan that was withdrawn is we insisted on consultation, and so this process has been going on for a couple of years. What NACO is doing now is they urge Congress to pass the Restore the Partnership Act and Unfunded Mandates Information and Transparency Act to increase the transparency, to reduce the regulatory burden, to foster the intergovernmental dialogue, and unite all levels of government in supporting our system. Another priority is promoting county infrastructure priorities. NACO supports efforts by the administration and Congress to increase our nation's infrastructure investments to help promote economic development, public safety, and overall mobility through a comprehensive package. Another priority is promoting mental health and substance use treatment and addressing essential criminal justice reforms. I serve on the Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee, so I hear a lot more of this stuff. NACO supports measures that promote and advance the overall safety of the public and enhances federal, state, and local partnerships to provide evidence-based treatment services to justice-involved individuals suffering with mental illness and substance use disorders. And this is a big one that NACO's been working on and the counties really want. NACO urges Congress and the administration to advance legislation and regulations that would amend the federal Medicaid Inmate Exclusion Policy, MIEP, which would then, if they do this amendment, would allow pretrial individuals to continue to have access to their necessary health care treatment through their benefits they already have, such as Medicaid, Medicare, VA, or the Children's Health Insurance Program. Right now, pretrial, they come into a county jail, those benefits stop, and the burden goes on the county budget to do this. They're not, they haven't been tried and convicted of anything yet. And that's the population this addresses. So the policy, the current policy denies federal benefits to individuals who are pending disposition and still presumed innocent under the due process and equal protection clauses of our Constitution. This needs to get done. This is continuing to be worked. NACO also tries to boost advanced broadband deployment and accessibility while preserving local decision making. They support a comprehensive approach, and they deal with it in a lot of their different forums, including the Rural Action Caucus. Another thing really relevant to us, NACO supports full funding for payments in lieu of taxes, PILT, and the Secure Rural Schools SRS program. NACO supports restoring full mandatory funding for PILT, which compensates public lands counties such as Harney County for untaxable federal land. NACO also supports extending the Secure Rural School SRS program as a transitional funding mechanism until the federal government fully implements a sustainable long-term forest management program with adequate revenue sharing for the forest counties and schools. They support legislation to ensure that the reintroduction and passage of permanently authorizing the PILT Act and the PILT Reauthorization Act would make it mandatory for 10 years. Right now, counties have to go back every other year begging for this money that supposedly was going to be permanent, but technically wasn't. So NACO also endorses legislation to extend the SRS for an additional 2 years, as well as reintroduce the Forest Management for Rural Stability Act, which would create an endowment fund to make permanent SRS payments to national forest counties and schools, while also granting more flexibility in the use of those funds. Another NACO priority, legislative priority, is promoting county priorities in future U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and other federal rulemaking, and that just goes across the board. So I know that Judge Reynolds serves on some NACO forums, and he'll update in a minute. On my specific ones, this year I'm on the Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee, and that's good because at the Association of Oregon Counties, I'm the co-chair of Public Safety, so that's how I get a seat at that table. And then the Veterans and Services Committee, I'm on that, and also the Rural Action Caucus. So I was able to attend all 3 of those sessions. The Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee, the major areas of focus are, this one was interesting, addressing FEMA's sudden, abrupt, significant changes in the threshold of eligibility for a presidential declaration of disaster and the ensuing public assistance that would be provided. The adjustments for that whole topic were neglected for more than a decade, and then just prior to the change of administration in January, FEMA proposed massive changes that are opposed by virtually all professional emergency management subject matter experts at the local and state levels, and it was developed and released for comment without warning or consultation. So obviously, NACO is fighting that. That's just not a fair process, period. And urging Congress to include arts-based juvenile justice programs among its strategies. Another one is supporting the increased funding through the U.S. Department of Justice to local law enforcement for the procurement of body cameras. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that Medicaid inmate exclusion policy amendment. On the Veterans and Service and Military Services Committee, and sometimes on that committee, those counties that have a military base there, et cetera, they have a lot of infrastructure and other things. But as it relates to us, the major areas of discussion were veterans' health and disability benefits for toxic exposure. That's a big thing now in the VA world, or just beginning to become one. Veterans treatment courts, increased support and funding for VSOs, veteran service officers, of which we do have, and we need that increased funding. Suicide prevention work, some focus on women's veterans who tend not to get into the system for various reasons, and caregiver community and respite services for veterans that have the health issues. The VA telehealth services was a big discussion item, both not only at VA offices, but also the overlapping topic of broadband and capacity issues to enable telehealth even from, the veteran's home. The same issues that our rural veterans would probably have. Suicide prevention, they have a lot of programs, and they've also are using technology such as smartphone dashboards and apps, the total mental health approach. And then they talked about the recognition of the gap between veterans of different ages and generations. This is kind of a broad generalization, but the vets who are younger than 55 are usually tuned in and use technology and the videos and the apps and whatnot, and the older than 55 not so much, prefer the in-person services. So, and then the Rural Action Caucus, that was the 3 of 3. That was very interesting, so I just throw these out for just general knowledge. They had the topic of the rural community colleges, and a lot has changed for community colleges since they were first established during the Truman administration, and now it's mostly like workforce development and junior college, CTE. That's taken more center stage at community colleges, and because of in rural communities, the online learning it's important for all communities, but very important in the rural communities, and again, that requires reliable broadband and Wi-Fi, and most small business development centers, SBDCs, are affiliated with and located in local or rural community college campuses, and ours is affiliated with Treasure Valley Community College, and they've done a really great job during the pandemic. This was interesting. It was a very detailed presentation. I just wrote some highlights down on the census and the trends for census. The census development now at the federal level centers around census blocks, and they are moving from their old model of population density when they fund things and district things and do things to housing density. So it used to be how many people, now it's how many houses or housing units regardless of vacancy, regardless of whether they're being occupied or not. Interesting. I have no idea the levels of things that you can wonder about for that. Urbanized areas with a central urbanized area of 50,000 or more people used to be what they would call a metropolitan area or category. Now they're upping that to 100,000, and including 25% of that figure can be people who commute into the urban area to work or the metropolitan area to work. Federal level, so the categories they are talking about are metropolitan, non-metropolitan, and rural. And of course, their rural definition is metropolitan to us, as far as there's no frontier, something like that. But the more truly rural regions will become identified, and they're possibly talking about areas with less than 4,000 housing units. So it's up in the air. It's not finalized, but it's a big change. There's probably many unintended aspects and consequences that I don't know. just was really catching my attention that it's a shift that's gonna have a lot of impact across the nation, and I'm not sure what that will be. And then broadband infrastructure, again, this was under the Rural Action Caucus. I'm sure they have that topic in the large urban caucus as well, but addressing FEMA's sudden, abrupt, significant changes in the COVID-19 pandemic underscored the criticality of broadband infrastructure, and, you know, from the homework gap and workforce adaptations and people working from home to critical healthcare services and e-commerce, broadband is now the keystone to our nation's response to the global health pandemic. Counties are committed to bridging the digital divide by deploying accessible and reliable high-speed internet regardless of geographic locations. That is the goal of the counties. The counties want equity here. Everybody should be able to access this stuff. It's not a luxury anymore. It's vital. But as we know, the frontier areas have a bigger challenge than just the rural and the large urban areas. And to that extent, I was able to emphasize and raise the issue that efforts to improve broadband connectivity to very remote frontier rural areas include what is technically not broadband. I mean, if you just stick to broadband and fiber, that's not going to solve our problem. And we will be left behind. And so, simply put, the ISPs, the internet service providers, will not engage with our rural areas of Harney County. You know, unless it's the ESD right to the schools, they're just not going to engage. So that means we need to be included in the funding and the plans to close cellular gaps in our vast remote county by adding cell tower coverage, increasing it and its capacity, and then combining hotspot technology, however you do that. And this is what I was saying based on some conversations I've been having with different folks around those cell phone tower centers. That would enable the frontier rural communities to have robust Wi-Fi in their homes and businesses, and not just limited to the location of the rural school. Many of our county rural families drive their kids to the school parking lot to do their homework at night because Wi-Fi, not because they aren't wanting to pay for some Wi-Fi at their home, but it's just not there for them. That's in a reliable enough sense that they can do that. So hotspot technologies to cover large distances surrounding the cell towers is needed, and I was asking that some of the gurus that were on the call, on the Zoom meeting, add that to their mission at the Washington DC level of broadband to rural. And so I just introduced that, and there were many Zoom chat comments from commissioners on that caucus thanking me and reinforcing my suggestions. So I think it's the way to address it instead of keep talking broadband for the rurals. You know, it's just, not all rural places are as remote as ours and spread out, but there's quite a few. We're not alone. Anyway, that concludes my rather lengthy presentation, but I know that we've all been so busy. It was really hard for me to attend the committees that I should attend because I'm on them. But I had to cut out other important things. Spreading it out across time was very challenging. And I know Judge Reynolds has some stuff to add to his topics.
So I sit on the Public Land Steering Committee meeting, and sat in on that meeting. First thing we're talking about was the $5.1 billion that's coming out to counties that we all know is coming. Harney County is getting $1.434 million. I've already had several people, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. So I think it'll be out in 60 days.
But only half of that amount.
Half of that is coming in 60 days, the other half in a year. City of Burns, I believe, is getting 583,000, and Hines is 323 or something like that. So I'm going to talk to City of Burns. They're excited. It's going to help them a lot. They're going to have to replace some patrol cars. Anyway, there's eligible uses, and it's going to be interesting what we can make fit. But I suggest we start compiling a list. We can. AOC is going to come out with what you can and can't do, and we'll look forward more to that. In the meantime, let's make a list. A couple early ideas is fairgrounds
Strategic plan.
no.
Oh,
Um,
house.
no, yes and no. Generator.
Yeah.
Generator backup, so, I mean, that is our place to go in emergencies, or if there should be mass gatherings. We don't have any generator backup. We could, that's been one thought that's thrown out. House is another one. There's a million ideas already coming at me, it's like, whoa. It'll be discussion and decision amongst all of us.
Session,
Oh, yeah.
that'll.
But for now, we can, jot down ideas, let's get them on a master list, as we know more, we'll talk, yep. So then, in addition to that, fiscal year 22 and 23, there's gonna be another 500 million to counties, local assistance and tribal consistency fund. It's not in sub for PILT or SRS, this is the white thing. We don't know a lot of details yet, we know there's questions, will it affect PILT and SRS? There's concern. So that's gotta play out before we know what that'll be. PILT payments for 21 will be here in June. And SRS fiscal year 2020 payments are expected late March, early April. So those are guaranteed now for sure. I think Senate Bill 435 is a 2-year reauthorization for fiscal years 21 and 22 on the SR on PILT. It ends the 5% draw. I can't remember if it's PILT or SRS. It ends the 5% drawdown. It'll fund us back at the fiscal year 17 levels. Counties may choose. Obviously, we're going to choose a higher level. So things are, it kind of repeats a lot of what Commissioner Doral was in. When you go into these separate committees, it all plays out in a little more detail. I don't know, I hadn't heard of this or something out there called the 30 by 30 concept. Heard that one?
I've heard that.
I
I've
have
had several
not.
constituents
You
contact
could
me.
serve 30% of the U.S. land and water by 2030. Currently, there's 12% permanently protected of the U.S. land mass, and 23% of our oceans are protected, mainly off in the western Pacific.
Protected from what?
Any use.
Oh.
30 by 30 concept, first I'd heard. There's another act called the Great American Outdoor Act. It's got up to $1.9 billion for deferred maintenance on federal lands over the next 5 years. So I'm assuming that's BLM.
Maybe they could put some dumpsters down in Alvord Desert, and a bunch of bathrooms and stuff.
So something else to watch for and see how it benefits us. WIR, Western Interstate Region, will be in Salt Lake City, October 4th through the 7th, or October 12th through 15th, like you said. So Western Interstate Region is just a section of NACO that deals with federal land issues in the West. Dan Joyce's, Judge Joyce in Meyer County is
He's on the board. at
on the
least.
board, right? Freeman was going to, I don't know if you ever got it accomplished.
Oh.
Something we're acquainted with.
Say, but they haven't figured out which state they're
No.
going with.
Yeah. There's a report from a guy out of Boise that was on fire in 2020. There were 58,250 fires on federal lands, burning 10.2 million acres. The highest point one day, there were 32,727 firefighters on every single day. We were at preparedness level 5 for 45 days. There were 15 fatalities in the fire season last year. 6 pilots, 9 total in aviation, 4 medical folks, 2 entrapments. We don't know locally, we had one. 455,000 plus acres burned in the Great Basin. 264,000 for BLM acres, and 1.3 million of that was greater sage-grouse habitat. Try to come back and use against us. The rural fire protection agencies last year were given 35 BLM engines, each with $3,000 of new equipment. That's a great partnership. 2020 outlook, normal for our area. It always depends on wet or dry. Department of Interior reported on invasive species plan. They invested $743 million last year. They have a new 5-year plan starting in 2021. It contains 5 goals. This is based off the John Dingell Act. Heard of that? Know a lot about it. Goal 1 is to collaborate, joint education, shared funding. Goal 2 is cost to effectively prevent introduction and spread of invasive species. Goal 3 is early detection and rapid response. Goal 4 is control and eradication. Act wisely. Goal 5 is good data collection and management. So I'm sure Jim Campbell will be involved in that discussion with our contract we do with them. Chris French is acting director of USDA. Forest Service. We've all met Chris or not. We've met Chris. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. Understands the West. I want to say he's from out this way. He said the top thing with him is the importance of the local relationships. We all agree that's critical to success. Last year there were 3.2 billion board feet sold, which is the highest amount in 20 years. That's nationwide, not Oregon. Visitation of the U.S. Forest Service was up over 200% last year. 30% of visitors they consider were new to the national forests. And we know that brought vandalism and stuff we don't want to see in the forest. And they will be focusing on maintaining the roads that they have. They went a lot of detail, but they're not going to be looking at close anymore. But when they say that, I'm curious if the ones that they have in the hopper that should be closed, if that will still fall through, they'll maintain what is left.
And out there locally, the focus is to put them in their inventory, not close them. And so they might not be actively managing the road, but it's not closed, it's just in inventory. So keeping them on the books, but for a later purpose.
So, a 2-track. And then it'll turn into 2 tracks, basically.
Yeah, and so as needed, they'll reopen them, depending on what that is, but they will maintain them in inventory.
That's a good meeting too. It's lots of cattlemen and folks on this committee, all on the screen, jab at each other. It was a fun meeting. John is from Colorado. John. I've always seen him at the meetings. He's got long blonde hair down to here. And he's always very active and vocal and really a nice guy. Met him a couple times. Fun to listen to him. That was what I had. I only attended the one week. Like I say, it goes on for about 3 weeks. I mean, this you could attend without paying the fee, so that's why I did.
You know, the Rural Action Caucus, so last year was the first year I went to NACO, and that was, you know, it cast 1,000, you know, big meeting room with, you know, and a few speakers, but on the Zoom virtual, it was like, I was able to participate, and then, you know, I've got people going, thank you, Commissioner, we have that issue in the chat and stuff. So maybe that's a fluke, just whatever, and the broadband expert at the federal level, you know, ever email them and stuff. And I mean, I just felt like I was actually participated better, maybe, you know, than in person on that. On the Justice and Public Safety, not so much, just because you really want to be there, you really want to be looking at the language. And but anyway, I do value, I do think NACO brings value for our interests in all the counties and resources as well. So we pay dues and we're NACO members.
So they're saying SRS back to the 17 level, is that what you, which still is down.
It's
Still
sad that we have to.
I'm not complaining, I mean, to the point of, yeah, I'll take anything, but
Better
I mean,
than
when you go from, before my time where it was 4 to 6 million, and those are just the ones that I saw because of the million more feet that came through. And then they went to the SRS and we started, I think my first year it was 2.1. And then it sunset in 5 years and they incremented it down to 1.1. And then we stayed at 1.1 sporadically. It'd be 2 years off, maybe 1 year on. And now we're at 9 something for this year because they.
Yeah, well, 1.4 to the county, but after the schools get
Yep,
theirs,
yep.
it's around 8.
So again, I mean, we'll take anything, but they just keep whittling to the point of, my 2 cents anyway.
I know Commissioner Robertson of Loudoun County has read some of this local assistance fund, the new thing.
Right.
She's got some concerns. Stuff that's hidden in the fine print.
Yeah,
If you want that.
sure.
Are all the counties in Oregon members? All 36?
Does NACO, AOC, yes. I think with an AOC member, you're up, well, you have to pay dues to NACO, but it's less than $1,000. It's nothing compared to what we pay AOC.
Yeah.
So I don't know for sure. AOC, yes. NACO, I don't know.
When I go to the Eastern Oregon road supervisors, every one of them are. So I would
Yes, they
assume, but
probably
I
are.
don't know that for sure.
They were promoting it in county college for everybody,
Oregon is well represented, but I don't know if all of them. Yeah,
Curry. Some of those will have the Oregon broke.
Just so you know, following up on minutes from last month where I said I would meet with planning and inspection staff around 11. Howard, Brandon come up
Oh,
to visit with us. And since we're together, it's legal. So it's kind of under discussion.
okay.
I'm going to lunch with 2 city managers next Thursday. At that point, I'm going to set a date for the bigger meeting with the cities, their planners.
Okay.
But they want to talk with us first before that meeting. I don't blame them.
plan before the plan.
Correct. Item 2, application for approval to install a culvert
It's a road
and or
approach.
approach.
Yeah, it's a road approach. It's actually at the very end of Garland. So it's fine, it doesn't affect us. It would affect the property owner that ended up purchasing that, I think it's 29 acres from the Garland estate. That was all, I think it was all plotted, but not all of it was recorded. I think I'm right, using the right terminology for that. At the very end of the Garland, is it Knight Drive? So he's wanting to put an approach at the very end of that and build a home. So again, the only person that it would really affect is him, and he's the property owner of the 29 acres. So it's all good from my perspective.
So this is, if you go down Knight Drive, it circles around you, go back out. So, just for reference myself.
Yeah, so
McNeil's-
down here-
McNeil's are down here.
McNeil's are down there, that's Marshall's home there, which there isn't anybody there right now. And again, the plotted maps that I saw from years ago when Garland was actually pitching Garland Acres, this road continued on down and came down, and I believe looked to Pierce Street,
Right.
kind of by Christensen's
Right.
and that way. But again, he owns all of this, so the only people that he would be eliminating or affecting is himself. So, and he has no intent of selling that 29 acres, so, at this point.
Today.
So anyway, it doesn't,
So it's Knight Drive.
is it Knight Drive that goes all the way there?
Knight is the one McNeil's are on, the one
Okay.
up higher.
The one up higher.
That's okay.
That's, yeah,
where we're-
exactly, yep.
So, the one Cliff County built years ago.
Yep. So, anyway, it doesn't affect anybody but him. It'll limit his, if he decided to develop that, which he says he's not, but the only person that it would affect was him. So, I'm fine with it. So, it doesn't affect me at all. And he's gonna be good about trying to get snow removal at the very end of that, but he's gonna make the gate wide enough to where we can get our, equipment beyond that, so we're not just plugging up his driveways.
I'm just thinking, when Brandon, last time Bud sold off a couple sections, they're under the 5 acres, but that's something Brandon mentioned, at some point we get 2 more houses up there, we're gonna have to have an outlet on the other side, either to Pierce or to East Tournament Road.
Right.
So
You see, and he owns.
There's only one way to get out of
And,
that area.
yeah, and so
There's more
he's the
people.
only one that owns all of that. He owns everything around our place where we're developing, and he owns this, so there's 21 acres up, off of Pierce Street that he owns. And then he also owns the 29 that actually goes up there by Garland and down by the Nazarene Church and that out there.
He must
So
have bought a chunk from Garland.
he bought all of it. It was an all or nothing deal with the estate of Garland's, so.
Who is this guy?
Nice guy, really nice guy. If you ever get a chance to meet him.
So how do you work on, is that something the planning department has to approach if, the road is needed to access out of the area? What kind of process?
Well, and again, if it was one individual with a smaller acreage and then it would affect, this is my perspective, so I'm just, from my perspective, it's a road issue, how's it gonna affect me? And it won't. But the question you're asking, and I get it, but the only person that it would affect negatively would be him. You see what I'm saying? So, but again, if it becomes an issue and somebody wants to develop that up there beyond, his, well, it wouldn't be beyond his new residence, to me, that would be something that would have to be worked out between him and Garland or Garland Acres or whatever.
But he bought all that. I think it would fall on him now.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a question for Brandon.
Yeah, certainly.
So
Better to have
from
a
my perspective as a
conversation.
road person, it doesn't affect me negatively. So it's got my approval, but.
Like you say though, when you only have one access out of an area like that, you're starting to get.
And I think that was the main push
Yes.
way back when in the 70s when Bud, was pushing that towards the county of the development, was that there would be more than one access in. So that's why he did it in increments, like a phase 1, phase 2. And, phase 1, per se is what's there now. And then phase 2 would be on that and then hook onto the streets down below. But that's just, it's never materialized.
And
I would
no,
think
it's not
Brandon
in their
would catch
possession
this in
anymore,
there.
so.
What's that?
And now it's not in their possession anymore. It's
Correct,
Chris
it's all
Jones'.
with him.
As far as your request, I think, okay, but I think the
Yeah,
bigger
but
question,
this is
I think there's a
straightforward,
bigger
the
question
other
to
needs
Brandon.
probably addressed.
Mhm.
I don't think I was even-
I'm sure, yeah, he is, because he's made the comment that the parcel that we purchased personally influenced or affected the plotted on the places that were around us. So he's aware of that. It's, again, I believe it's, and again, correct terminology, it's been plotted but not recorded. So the development of all of that.
Platted or
But
Is it the normal process for something to be platted and not recorded? That's a normal thing? or is that
I think so,
not
so
a-
you don't, I think the same thing as when you're going up to Garland's, that in the Hines, which would have been Bud's old alfalfa field. Again, I've seen the map for that whole development to the south. And again, I think those have been plotted, but not all of them are recorded, because if you look at the parcels that big parcels that, shoot, can't think of their name, no, it's, Puckett's.
Okay.
Puckett's own that 18 acres out there. When you look at that parcel, it's one parcel, 18 acres. So again, it's been plotted, but I don't think it's been recorded to show the rest of that development. And it's the same thing up there. Now, Brandon will probably say totally something different, but that's as far as I know, so I'm a road guy, so.
I'd make a motion to approve the approach at the end of Night Drive.
No, yeah, I can't remember the name of
I
them.
think the one upstairs, Night goes
Down
straight,
below,
and
down
the
to
other
McNeil's,
one's called-
and yeah, I think you're right.
Wait today, they're leaving my
Was there a reason
Well,
to run this by
It says
Brandon?
memory. That's not Night there.
I think from my perspective, I don't think there should be. I think for him to do development or build or whatever, I think that's where he may run into it. So,
Yeah, correct. Been moving, or motion to approve the approach for Dave and Aaron Ferray. For that's 700 for checking drive.
I second that.
We could say on map tax lot 23 south, 30 east. So this is, they're both Night Drive.
Yeah, that's what's confusing.
oh, really? Wow. I've never really looked at the signs, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, well, New Night was McNeil's,
So there's no reason to,
not call this up.
Well, that does say Frank's Court, and then you could pull out.
Yeah, oh, no, okay, Night is right. Heinz Court is McNeil's.
It's McNeil's.
Okay. We're good. It's for 700 Night Drive. And moved and seconded to approve the application for an approach for Dave and Aaron Gray at 700 Night Drive. All in favor? Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
And then when I speak with him this next time, of course, he'll get that mail to him, but when I speak to him, I occasionally do, I'll make sure that he has a conversation with Brandon, at some point in time to,
Yeah, I'm not saying it's required, but I think if he's supposed to sell more lots and put more houses, it's gonna happen.
yeah.
Yeah, just
Kind
have
of a
that
scary,
forethought.
thought.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think, his intent is
to
one,
get to-
one residence, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point.
At this point, yeah, exactly. Good change.
Yeah, here's the thing, the attachments we want.
thanks.
All right, we're gonna do that. Resolution number 2021-01. Fair board, thanks, Eric. 2021-01. Is anybody else on the line for public comment? Hearing none. Thank you.
Hello?
Could you step in?
Yes.
Thank you. She's just doing, again, some cleanup on the donations from your wild. The other one I can explain. I'm not sure I was gonna- The Frontier Wild explanation, please.
So it's a committee that Carrie, Georgia Marshall, Kate, Kathy Swisher formed to raise money for the 8-second saloon that they want to see at the fair. And so they wanted the money separate, not in fair funds because they used with that. And so we ended up dumping it into the 253 fund. And they only spent a little bit, but what happened is, it happened after budget time. It happened in the summer before fair, but after budget time, so we need to say we got it and that we spent it after budget. And I don't know going forward if that's really the best place for it, so it doesn't get convoluted. If they could create their own little
Not away from the
entity.
Are,
something away from
Mhm.
are there any other entities that come to mind that are similar that relate to the fair but are their own thing, like this?
Not that I'm, like, you mean like this?
Is
kind
this
of
a really unique thing?
Yeah,
And what is its main purpose?
to fund the 8-second saloon, so it'd be like the beer garden at the fair and rodeo.
They want to move the beer garden away from the beer garden. It's something similar based on Lake County.
Yeah, Lake
And
County
build the
Penalty,
roundup,
Rewrite Room, Letterbuck Room, where you go in, you pay your cover charge, you pay $12 for beer, you watch a band. It's entertainment separate from the rodeo.
And then it also doesn't clog up the spot where you could have people coming in and out. Because you kind of come from the arena through there.
Yeah, I'm not
If it was
100%
somewhere
Does it
else,
have to
it'd
be
be
family
nice.
friendly? Like,
Not technically, not that I'm aware of.
To a degree.
Does it have to be a county financial thing at all? Can it just
Well, I think
be
their
a
goal was to raise money
contract?
for the grounds in general, not just the saloon, but
They
the
wanted
the
to
grounds
raise
in
it for
general.
the celebration in a couple of years.
The 100th, yeah.
I-
I-
COVID kind of slowed
I
down.
mean, I'm not against, I'm just trying to think, is this,
well, I just,
They're
I
gonna
feel like-
reinvest in the fairgrounds with the funds from the fair garden.
as far as like us holding their money, I feel like the entity should create their own account, be on their own, but, so we're not holding their money, and then if they wanna donate it to the fair for an activity,
Okay.
that's what I see for it in the future, because now it's part of some other monies that are held there, and George is keeping track, I'm trying to keep track of it. It's just, it's messy.
I do know one entity that might be willing is High Desert Partnership. I talked to Brenda a little bit about a different project and kind of having money stashed away outside of the county funds for our projects we're looking at on the ground, strategic plan, new buildings. Funders want to see us have money outside of county control that is earmarked for that specific building, and I don't know if HDP is something they'd want to talk to or willing to do, but that's one option.
Second one
Thank
is the difference. Remember when we did the budget, we didn't think we were gonna get our full amount from the state for fair, we only budgeted 20,000.
Yep.
So this is the other 33,000, and then Bob and Jordan went through and expending it to different lines to help
To clean it up.
clean it up and stuff. Yeah, make sure we have a budget violation, leave their own. And motion on these separately.
I move to approve resolution number 2021-01
And you're all here.
in the matter of appropriating funds due to unexpected occurrence or condition, Harney County Fair Board Memorial Fund number 253 in the amount of $3,520.
Moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2021-01, unexpected revenue from the Frontier Wild Committee of $3,520. Received and expended. All in favor? Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion carries.
Green?
You're the one to see Patty walk over there.
Very
aren't you?
marginal. Green?
I won't be able to show you mine, sorry.
My son was all over it.
I hate St. Patrick's Day, I'm sorry. I hate it.
Do you want the Kleenex?
I got fed a lot as a kid, I just hate it.
No corned beef?
Well, we are eating that for dinner, that's the one part I do like, the whole wearing green part, I hate though.
So
Why, it's
present.
such a lovely color.
It is.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Motion for,
I move to approve resolution number 2021-02 in the matter of appropriating funds due to unexpected occurrence or condition, Harney County Fair Fund number 252, in the amount of increasing the $33,166.67.
been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2021-02, unexpected revenue from Oregon Fair Association $33,166.67 over budgeted figure. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Carried. Welcome. Okay, so this, I mentioned to the commissioners that following up on our minutes from our last meeting, that we would talk with you folks before we set up any type of meeting with cities and others to get a handle on protocol, I guess. And stuff's going on out there, and is it from, we're a county building department, we're not a city building department. They have their own people. But lately it seems like a lot of finger again pointed our way. And I think it's just fair to have this discussion first, kind of a game plan before our meeting with those. And the ultimate goal is to get the two cities and the county to work together. We're not the building things, nothing. That's just not what this department is. We issue the permits, we inspect the work, and we move on. Folks go on to the projects, and hopefully everything's done properly, safely, to code. So that's what this is about. And Riley and they're, say hard things, but these folks are building frustrations in the last couple of weeks, and I think rightfully so. We've seen it before. We've weathered the storm, we've gone on. We have some new city managers, I think that would be very proactive to work together and maybe stop some of this. So, Brandon talked to me a little bit this morning, I asked him to come up and share the same thing with you guys, and bring these two gentlemen along. We are, with our two inspectors, we're so good, we've never sat this good in providing the services they provide. I think they're probably every contractor in town will pat them on the back and thank them for quick inspections, et cetera, et cetera. Never, it didn't used to be that way around here.
Is there any IGA or intergovernmental agreement with the city?
I will show my ignorance. What does the city do, these cities, in terms of any type of permitting, licensing, or whatever?
So,
Without getting too detailed.
sure.
I'll give you one quick answer. I had to go to the city.
They have to
for the
preface
Sally,
it when they talk to me.
just for the Sally Port patio. I had to go to the city with the plans, pay $175. They send it off to their folks.
So they do
before
it because
comes
it's
back to
within
here.
the city.
Right.
There you
So at a high level,
Okay, thank you.
right? So we provide building permit services for 3 different jurisdictions. The county, of course, right? And then both incorporated cities, Burns and Harney.
We do it for all three.
Yes, the permit services for sure.
Permit services.
And a part of that naturally is going to be have an element of enforcement and compliance, right? For the county, it's all built in because we have the land use jurisdiction and the enforcement jurisdiction outside of city limits. So if somebody's building a home, for instance, or there's an improvement, it typically starts with zoning and land use, right? So naturally, I'll reach out to these folks and say, hey, we've got some things we gotta make sure we're all on the same page at. There's a potential compliance issue here. Starts with zoning and then you move through for building. Where the inconsistencies can kind of bubble up a little bit, and they have over the years, is when we are working through potential permitting compliance issues with those city jurisdictions. And the staff turnover can be a part of it. And
So the cities don't do any building permits at all, construction permits?
I don't mean to speak for you guys, but we will issue all building permit. We provide that service for those cities.
Commercial or residential?
Correct.
Okay.
We do not do that unless we receive approval from jurisdiction.
Okay.
And that's, on certain things, we don't need it, like an interior remodel, of course, it's not changing the footprint. So we don't require any, unless it's, fire life safety type thing, where we have to get the fire marshal and the city fire chief involved.
So anything in the city, you're usually involving them in their first step, typically, right? And that's the proactive, I'm coming to get a permit, this is what I'm doing. On the enforcement, when a project's already started, when an improvement's already started, that's where the gray area has been there, because it's their jurisdiction, we provide that permitting service. And so we're seeking to try and get that consistency with the cities.
So, do you have any idea if it's a hands-off attitude with the cities as well? I mean, if you become aware of something because you can't help but become aware of it, or because it has been brought to your attention, hey,
It's complaint driven.
if it's it comes to your attention. I mean, does the city have any role, do the cities have any role at this point? It's brought to their attention to do something. Is the county, because we issue the permits, we are the one that if it's brought to our attention, we then check to see, yeah, he's doing something, you don't have a permit, you need to get a permit.
Well, unless there's a permit, we don't, unless it's complaint driven.
Say that
If
again,
somebody,
please.
if they have a permit, fine. They don't have a permit, our hands are off.
Well,
Unless it's complaint driven.
I mean, complaint driven. I'm
Right,
only talking
complaint
complaint
driven,
driven.
we'll go down and talk to them, and we'll say, you probably need to get a permit, but you need to get the city's approval first.
You say probably?
Well, I don't know the
It has to
situation.
go through the city before it
Mhm.
can come to
For example, something going on at the Central with roof repair. Are they repairing it? Or
Yeah.
are they replacing it? Repair doesn't require a permit.
Well,
Some-
and then
some
like
of
that too, Pete, like the line is, I received a phone call today from Judy Irwin regarding exactly what we're talking about. And according to her, the work is already done. So, that's another line as opposed to, okay, it's in the process of being done. So we can, address that. How do you address something like that that's already completed? And how do you verify that it actually is new?
And was it
Well,
repaired
yes.
or was it?
How do other
Exactly.
communities do it?
Exactly.
Yesterday was a good
How do
example.
other counties do it?
I don't know, imagine they do it the same way, it's still under the jurisdiction.
Possible they have enforcement officers.
Yeah,
Sure. So, for the county side, I can provide an example for what we do. Right? So if it's outside city limits, let's say, somebody's putting an addition on their house, right? Probably not much of a zoning element there. I'll do a site plan review, but if it's an existing house, okay, turns into a building permit deal at that point. However, if they're, as far as enforcement and teeth, if you want to think about it that way, the county has the ability at that point, as the jurisdiction, to ultimately put a lien on the property if it gets that far. There's fees before that, much communication before that any of that stuff happens. Just trying to bring the situation into compliance, right? We work through that pretty seamlessly, but when it comes to the city, we don't hold that jurisdiction. So when somebody's doing work without a permit, we need to receive that complaint or report from the city, right? If we hear something, we can certainly check off on it from a community member, I suppose, but really, that direction needs to be provided by the jurisdiction.
and several times I've sent pictures, and several have gotten communication with the city, hey, this guy's putting in this, or this needs a permit, and I haven't heard anything. And all I get back is, I'll look into it. And I can show you examples of emails that I've done. And a good example was yesterday, when Ocean called me and sent me the email. And I went out and took pictures, and you saw them, and yeah, he didn't have a permit, we're gonna force him to get a permit. And it's all complaint driven. If we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it.
Thing yesterday was inside a building.
Yeah,
You can't go walk through every building until.
exactly.
Where does the liability fall for if someone builds or refurbishes something in an unsafe manner and then there is you know, someone gets hurt,
It-
or
it-
something
it's
happens.
The owner of the contract and
Yeah,
whoever's doing the work.
And that, the fact that whether they're licensed and bonded or not, you know, may or may not have happened. I mean, they may be licensed, they may not, and then consumer beware, but I mean, the whole thing for the regulations is, in my view, the good reason is for safety.
Well, that's what
You
the
know.
building program is, consumer protection. And if they want consumer protection, get the permits, go through the process. But if they don't, you know, I mean,
The
That's all
the
there.
county building program we won't get sued because, yeah, you knew I didn't have a permit, you knew I wasn't using licensed contractors, and yeah, I have some responsibility, but the county does too. Are we gonna get that coming on us?
I do not
Well,
understand that.
No, I
yeah,
don't know, I'm just
understand that
asking.
either, because if we know, then we either tell them yay or nay, whether it requires a permit. So I don't understand.
On the responsibility side of that, I would think once we're moving through an actual permitting process, of course, we play a role at that point, right? We do the plan review and the inspections, and we're certainly in the mix. But if they don't have a permit, then it's on the owner. It's their project, their responsibility.
Or if they're doing work outside of the scope of their permit.
True.
Right.
That
Then-
happens every
then,
once in a while.
You know, we gotta bring it to the attention that, hey, this needs to be addressed. We're trying to do the
What
best we can.
happened with the Washington Park bathrooms or whatever the city owns? Was there some debacle?
Oh, it's total, yeah.
Not, just broad brush, did a lot of people not do what they were supposed to do along the way?
The contractor had the whole thing framed up, sheet rocked and everything before he even called for a framing inspection
Okay.
and a rough-in
And
inspection.
he didn't build it according to plans.
And he did not, we had to send him back to the engineer a couple times. The engineer redid it, and then the next thing we know,
Okay.
he's ready for all the rough ends, and it's all
I
sheet
got a
rocked.
call on that one from prior interim city manager and saying, I didn't have her come tell them. Pedro was at all the
Pedro
inspections.
was there,
So that, we did our due diligence.
and it was all the state. We did all the FaceTime with the state, what we could.
Now we can't, Brett, they can't trump the state.
Well, I think it'll be good
Safety is safety.
when it gets to that working session when the cities are with you, right? I mean, that's usually been my experience when there's been disconnects for a long time or whatever. And then when you get everybody in the room, nobody's not there, and these topics are not avoided, they are brought up. Then if there was someone who never was really wanting to do that part, and then it says, so the city burns, this is your, part of your work, and then everyone's going, yeah, and they're going, yeah. I mean, hopefully that will improve things, right?
And I think it might be a good idea to possibly to have the building official a part of
Oh,
that
definitely. 'Cause
conversation.
he's.
Just to see what we are allowed to do and we aren't allowed to do in certain situations.
And what
like that.
has to come to you versus what's your
Yeah,
responsibility.
exactly.
Right, yeah, exactly.
No, I think that would be very beneficial.
Is there much turnover in the city staff on these matters, or they've had stability for a while?
Yeah, there's been quite a few.
Mindy's been Burns' planner
Well,
for quite a
and-
while, but
yeah,
Mindy's,
and-
doesn't have the proper education.
And I think we're on our
That's a whole
ninth,
other challenge.
I think we're on our ninth building official since I've been doing
Right,
this.
with the
So that's a big turnover too.
Who's the building official right
It's Warren Jackson, and then Jeremy's the deputy building official, who we mostly go to.
And the state's currently still just doing FaceTime, they aren't coming and traveling in.
Not right now, no. We had Jeremy over one time, I think, since the COVID thing. We tried to get him over for finals, but there hasn't been anything that we actually, it's been pretty simple finals that we do.
now? So are the residential projects much easier?
Oh, yeah.
We're mainly talking commercial here today?
Like, all residential is done in-house. You know, these guys do the plan review and all the inspections. We do all of our on-site stuff, it's all in-house.
And, Brett, what is your status as far as what you're, approved to do on your own as far as inspections? Are you
I'm-
fully residential
I'm
qualified?
fully residential certified.
Totally certified. So now you need to get hours out in the field and take courses for commercial? Is that correct?
So that was the original hope and thought. However, after further investigation and conversation with state people, there has to be apprenticeship programs that are taken and passed, as well as a certain amount of time in the field before you can even become eligible to take the state test exam for commercial. So
In other words, it's really tough.
very, very
And
tough.
you'll probably never get the electrical and the plumbing, because you require 8 years of being a journeyman in the field to be electric, and same thing with plumbing.
Do you
So
have
unless you're an
all those
electrical engineer,
At least not commercially.
I have my SEI and SPI, which is specialized electrical inspector and specialized plumbing. I can do light commercial, I can do pivots, I also have pivots. And I think I'm the only one in the state that's got pivots, because the state doesn't want to send anybody down to the south end to inspect pivots, because that's so long ways. For a, $200 permit, it costs more than gas.
And that's a relatively new program that they did for the.
Yeah, they did it specialized for me.
Well, what,
Herb used to have that, didn't
Yeah, Herb is an electrical engineer. Yeah, so he got to be an A-level electrician. If you're an electrical engineer or a sanitation engineer, you can go right in and do some testing and some training. You can get right into your A-level. But for me or Brett to get in there, I mean, it's not just take a test.
So the commercial will still be through the state.
It would be very difficult to get away from the state.
Oh,
If that, I know that's probably the ultimate goal, but it's,
But
So
not necessarily
in-
realistic.
In order to get there, you have to make significant compromises in how you build your program. And I'll cut to the chase. You have to find individuals that are willing to take those tests and get certified. And they're gonna have to be on call. The majority of our work, and I don't have percentages, but the majority of our work is not commercial, it's residential. But when those jobs do come up, it's gonna have to be on call. There isn't enough volume to have them on staff, even full-time or part-time. The other challenge is you're gonna have to, instead of just going to the state for one inspector or whoever they send over for the job, we will have to hire 3 different individuals to tackle mechanical, plumbing, and electrical. And to maintain them would be a significant challenge.
and
They're not gonna be cheap.
Judge Reynolds, are they having some proposed legislation to enable, you know how they quit doing the third party
They're trying to,
a few years ago, and then now, are they
Yeah,
backtracking a little?
yeah, I think they're trying to find a way to keep the third parties involved.
Yeah, because they eliminated those.
Yeah.
But since Mark Long moved on,
Mhm.
Summit said that was his pet peeve, he's gone, who knows?
Oh, I
Yes, there's
see,
talk.
I see.
So it's not decided, it's just in motion.
Yes.
That is an alternative that we haven't necessarily explored.
But the
Yeah,
problem,
It's in flux right now.
Available.
we explored it when it was available, because we had a plans examiner that we were using out of Ontario.
yeah, and that backfired on us.
Yeah,
Yeah, we tried.
Yeah. But, yeah.
It is preferable, of course, to try and make everything as local as possible. I think we've reached that limit based on how the program can work in a responsible sense fiscally.
I mean, before I got in there, it was inspections once a week. That's, people would throw their arms up if that happened now.
It's almost get a drop of a hat now. They're not in it,
But one problem you got trying to hire an A-level electrician, plumber, well, the field out there is going gangbusters right now. They wanna work with a private individual, make more money than they would if they came in on board with us. That's one of the problems about, I think you found that out when you were trying to hire a building official.
Years ago, you know, when we were looking at our own building official and trying to have that model, we just couldn't even, trying to find someone, trying to find the unicorn scenario with someone who has the majority of those certifications is very rare. And one specializes in his own field, it's not so.
And that's the way it used to be. It specializes the way it was. Until, I don't know, when I got in there, they started diversifying and getting everybody trained on everything that they could. So some of your A-level guys are trained for residential and on down the line, but it's pretty tough to get one guy that knows all.
In fact, when I think, not to belabor it, but when we were going through those interviews, we had one person who was able to, who was qualified to be our commercial, who had all the residential stuff. That could be the building official and also do commercial plan review, fire life safety, and one other discipline. I think it was electrical. They would do electrical. They magically had the electrical experience to pull it off. But we would still have to hire the separate inspectors for mechanical on the commercial side.
And right now, the state shoulders the cost of that because they're their employees.
Right, correct. So our agreement with them is on a contractual basis, right? And so
90-10.
I think that's probably the best thing.
it's not our favorite percentage, for sure.
And that's probably what we need to negotiate.
And that's right,
I know.
negotiating before Mark left, he said there wasn't
And
one.
they did get a little bit back when they started letting us get paid for the commercial stuff I can.
So it's gone down.
Mm-hmm. Quite a bit.
We've kept a good deal of that money we did before, but it is still 90-10.
We're gonna do the new head guy at the state and start working. I don't know who it is.
The trick with the commercial stuff is you're gonna have these, and you guys can speak better to this than I can, but you'll have these ebbs and flows of that activity in the commercial side, whereas residential seems to be a lot more consistent. And, you know, you'll have years where you may question whether or not, if you were to hire your own local inspector, whether or not you can employ him at all.
And I think you guys, in my opinion, we've got your back. We just need, this is been going on for years, really, I think. I don't think there's no fighting between the cities and the county, it's just been an untalked about deal, and then every now and then this happens. So I think, all sitting down together, I'm going to lunch next Thursday with Dan and Kirby, and at that point, I want to talk to him about meeting with Mindy or Burns, I don't know who does Hines, or you guys, if you want Jeremy or Flynn, that's great. And maybe Jeremy's aware of something in other cities, how
Oh, I'm sure he
cities work
is.
together, maybe he can give us some ideas.
And that's where he's trying to keep us consistent with what everybody else is doing. And same with Warren.
Grant County,
For most of the other cities, it seems like they have their own building program. I mean, Jeremy does a lot of the, like Grant County
But
and
does
stuff
all
like
of it.
that. But the state does a lot of their building programs unless it's like Deschutes, who has their own, you know, probably everything.
And she's got two of them. They got city and then they got the county. So there's two different building programs there. But they've got the tax base and they've got
the turnover.
They've got the
Completely
ball,
different
they've got the
scenario.
volume.
Yeah, they've got the money to be able to support
And
it.
to do it completely fee-driven too. We're not completely fee-driven or fee-based.
No.
Right? Supported well by it, but you know, there's still general fund activity that we have to rely on to make the program.
Last couple of years, we've done our, not yours, but
I'm
buildings.
completely
You're 100%. Pretty much. That's not the planning stuff. We always put some in the budget in case we need to start, but so far it's worked. And Jesse's helped with
Yeah, that's,
in the second part of it.
I guess my point is, it's just hard to compare us to other cities and
Yeah,
counties.
we're already.
We're in a good spot, like
We
I
are.
said, better than a lot of cities.
And Grant County has have to inspector come down once a week, and that's when they get their inspections. They're totally through the state.
So how are they doing that if they're not, state's not traveling?
Good question.
They're traveling. They're coming to Pendleton. Yeah, Pendleton's coming down. Pendleton handles that John Day pretty good. Jeremy's still, I think, the building official. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, Salem, we shut down. It's been like that for a year.
So, do either of you need some, or want some training that hasn't been available to you before?
Continuing ed.
Well, I am planning on trying to get the other stuff that he has, so we can at least keep that momentum.
And see, that's through the state. And see, I got 2 of my certificates through ICC, probably the toughest ones I ever tried to get. And then the rest of mine went through the state training. And they haven't been offering it since this COVID thing. But Brett's been in contact with.
Does it require travel or online or a combination?
I'm not sure. Usually, I mean, I've been talking to Dana a little bit, just like I said, on the state stuff, or I mean, on the commercial stuff, but I haven't really got into the SCI, SPIs. I was trying to just go right for it, but obviously it's.
Well, and they might
Yeah.
rethink how they're doing it after COVID too, and so they might be pivoting a little bit.
Well, they were supposedly gonna offer the same, with structural and mechanical, get that, specialized, but then Tom left. Tom was great training. Once Tom left, the training pretty much, yeah. So,
Now, I'm willing to get whatever's available, you know, and it's
Well, it would make sense
feasible
as
to
you can to
accomplish.
get.
Yeah,
similar
just to
what
keep it
Howard
running,
does.
I mean, that's the goal.
Have that.
yeah, it's, I mean, someday I'll
Reinforced.
retire.
We know there's a continuity plan and we're developing that with staff. As far as, you know, how we can move forward once Howard's done. But, I think we're super close and you're fully residentially certified.
Yeah, I'm good
And now
there.
it's the limited commercial part that goes next.
We get Grant County contract with residential and Brett get a lot of experience.
Yeah, the state didn't wanna go for that.
I know, we tried
We
it.
talked about it.
We talked about it.
Cause yeah, I had one of the state people call me up and asked me to go to do an inspection in Grant County. Wait a minute.
How much?
When I got home, my building official says, let me get on the phone.
Yeah, we could charge travel time like they do.
Yeah,
We could really turn things.
but, you know, and that's Jessie's deal. She's very seldom even here anymore. I mean, she's up in Wheeler and Grant and,
She does have a good amount of office time, but he's
Well,
right.
especially probably during this season where septic.
It'll definitely pick up.
Going into.
But she stayed busy through the winter, I mean, I was
Yeah.
really surprised, so.
She's been a very welcome addition, especially not only from the department standpoint, but from the folks coming in to get their work done for their homes or whatnot. I mean, just, I can get the whole septic thing done here. We were DEQ for decades, forever. up until this
yeah,
point.
and that took a big load off my chest a little bit, because I used to handle all the deep, septic stuff and try to arrange the inspection. And it was a lot of work. So it's helping immensely.
Who do you envision, not at the meeting you're gonna have with the city managers next week, but at the follow-on meeting, where you guys gonna talk about who needs to be there?
So, Aaron, whoever from the state you think we can sit in.
Yeah, we might have to zoom in or something.
And then as far as the cities go, the manager for sure, and like Mindy, Bernard, who does Harney, and if they want a council person, I mean, always gonna be a public meeting, because we're all meeting out there, but
Make sure
it's a
you,
work session, go call it, and try to just come to a concurrence of.
just make sure it's not one of these things, you know, it's like,
No, it's not about
We all
finger
do
pointing,
it.
it's about working together.
yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah, and so are you,
You've
even though it's
experienced
a
a lot of that.
conversation, is
Mhm.
someone
Yeah,
gonna
it's
come
not-
up with kind of the main
agenda.
agenda bullets that need to be covered?
I
Who
can
wanna
certainly
do-
help, if that, if you think
I
that
would-
would be helpful. I can put together a bare bones
Yeah,
deal.
you guys think of something related to Brandon and get on it.
Or like you say, if an IG is needed, then that's
I
the
don't know.
route we need to
That's-
go,
I
but
mean,
you know, it's
if
something.
they-
How hard is that?
If they are complaining about our process, let's get it on paper, what needs to be done.
And
That's-
then it might help into the future
Yeah,
as
because-
players change, that they have this
Exactly.
document to come
It's
back.
gotta be consistent,
I
in
think
my
that
opinion.
makes sense.
Yeah, and if, every time you change a official, then he's got something to go by, instead of saying, oh, this is good.
There are no complaints coming out of city managers. There's past insurances that have always been a little, well, you know what realm they fall, what group of folks they fall.
Yeah.
And I think,
Yeah.
so, but, and the new city manager for Burns, when this first came up a couple weeks ago, he's like, "Is that your plans?" It's not your plans, he said, I'm not gonna go against the right following. He's a former policeman too, I mean, he understands the protocol and following procedure.
I do think, and this is coming from a county regulator, but who wants to formalize everything. Some things are really great when they just work, and sometimes that doesn't happen without some kind of on-paper description of protocol and agreement, and maybe we do need to go there. It can be simple, but,
Yeah, if you could get a hold of some
Talk to your
example or
colleagues
sample
in other
IGA
communities,
that
see
you
if
could,
they-
base it off.
You don't have to
Well,
reinvent the wheel.
I'm sure it'd be kind of similar to what we have with the state, and what we have with, inspection.
okay.
I think it's, I won't say it's broke, it's just never been,
Well-
never been talked about amongst the three that you mentioned. So everybody knows.
It hasn't been broke, it's just been misunderstood.
It's a great way to
I
put
won't
it.
say more.
Tactful.
But, I mean, the cities can't go out, they can't afford to go hire a building inspector.
No,
No,
we're
but-
filling that gap for them.
Yeah, but I mean, they can drive down, Brett and I take a drive and we do our inspections, we're spotting things all over the place. And sure, we contact the city, it was kind of like, done it several times and I just get the comment, well, we'll look into it. And then it never goes any further.
Then that needs to be done.
Yeah, I can show you the emails I've sent.
Yeah, when it becomes a personal deal, it becomes
Well,
a big problem.
The only time that we really hear about
They're
it,
the ones that
complaint
ask.
driven on residentials, if it's property line stuff. If somebody puts like a juniper cookout shed, then we'll know about it. Otherwise, you can go down the street and you'll find thousands of hickory sheds
Hickory sheds.
that are not permitted. It's
That's
like,
a whole other headache.
It's a prime example is juniper cookouts. Not a single permit, except for a service permit for electrical. And, yeah, and I don't know how many emails I sent on that.
So consistency. Follow through, I guess, really figure, two big things.
But, yeah, it's not easy sometimes, because you get people pretty angry at you sometimes when you,
Not gonna be the
I
most
think
popular.
I think I made two of them angry today already, so.
It is the nature of the business.
It's
Not
hard,
gonna be
it's
the most
hard.
popular chocolate in the
No,
Just
there's
tell
more
them it's not
enemies than
personal.
friends.
It is
Yeah.
not personal.
No, it
It's not.
doesn't work that way. It is personal.
Yeah. So you're not doing it on a personal level. You're doing your job.
Okay. You're good?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time
Here to make
to
it.
explain some of this.
Appreciate the explanations.
It's always better to have the conversation than wish you would.
No, it's good.
Not to belabor it, but it's amazing how transformed this program is compared to where it was when I got here. And not to pat myself on the back, but when somebody needed any kind of building, we were here in this room, and we would say, well, contact inspections. And then wash our hands. And then if they wanted an inspection or a time to meet with an inspector to talk through it or to try and schedule anything, they have to go through inspections, which came here once a week. And so there was always this desire to have some local control over our program, to speak to an individual right now. I want to work my way through this. I don't want to talk to somebody over the phone in Ontario or at the state, which would be worse. And we're in as good a spot as we've ever been over the last 20 years. Well,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Dan.
three of you. Take
Get your
care.
brackets in.
yeah, get your brackets in, folks. Thanks for the plug. We'll see y'all later.
Let your dad miss people.
Yep.
Y'all got that email,
I
right?
deleted it.
Getting off of my request for information thing.
You
I
still
don't want it in
followed
my
up with
email.
Winter Buys Donuts?
You
That
have
one?
to know.
I
Did
looked
you
it
get
up.
the email?
I did. I don't appreciate getting them, but I got it.
For entertainment purposes only.
And they request our email account so they can see if we're doing anything wrong. I actually
wondered-
looked up, and
I won-
technically Oregon is one of the states that it's not illegal to do that at work. But it's more, but the article I read said, but really, guys, you shouldn't do it. I'm like, I'm staying out of it, but I don't want those emails.
I did win it 2 years ago, and then they handed me the money and said, and you know you have to buy donuts now on Friday. I guess that had been a trend, I didn't know it, that took more half my winnings. So that's why I followed up with the email and said, Winter Buys Donuts.
Oh, I didn't know if you
Well,
were
they're
trying to
trying
be
to
funny
get
or
caught.
something.
No,
I didn't know.
I got caught off guard.
Yeah. Okay.
So this must be different than their last extension.
To perfect a water right, you know? Wow. 75.
Over 2 years till the proposed completion date.
They're still putting pivots in the, right, there's 12 last month.
I heard
God, it just breaks my heart.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I-
Are they permitted, they just do it?
I think
Where?
some
We
things
never
like
saw it.
a transfer, it's a transfer of another permit.
They're all trying to hurry up and develop everything up before the regulation comes. And who needs water planning? It's not really going anywhere at this point.
Still waiting on the study.
It's accomplished the delay that it was intended to accomplish, but the resource itself, the water, is getting sucked up so badly. It's really a shame.
Schedule.
I just had, I just know we have reasons to have work sessions, us and
Right.
whoever, and so I just, but first one question. Is the FEMA floodplain letters?
Okay, so we just got, Brandon just brought it up to me yesterday, the 90 days has opened, just
Okay.
in the last couple days.
Okay.
Carrie's, and Brandon, Carrie's working on the letters.
Okay.
Bryce is getting the details, that should go out next week.
Very good, thank you. I just feel bad if that fell through the
No,
cracks.
we're on it.
And so what that is a letter
Saying
from the
you're-
county saying, this is happening, your situation is being affected, this is the 90-day period, and who can they contact for further questions? Brandon?
It's in there.
Or-
Brandon,
Okay.
employee or
Okay,
region.
very good. So it sounds like the
Or
building
myself,
program.
and or myself.
And the building program, you just told us what's gonna happen there with some meetings. Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance, Tim Smith had brought, wanted to find out if county court, like individually asked me, would you be inclined to refer it, because we've got a little bit of a revision. I said, well, at least send me the copy, but I don't know. And I think did he send you as well?
Yeah, and I told him that I'd like to review what we currently have as far as the previous.
The preservation ordinance and the proclamations that we've made.
And maybe sit down and have a work session where we look at what we have, we look at what he's proposing, and see if maybe we could just make changes to what we have instead of
In our resolution.
come up with something completely different that, as I've read through it and had communications with Sheriff Jenkins about it, there's things in it that aren't gonna fly. But if there's some pieces to it that could be, could enhance the other one.
Dominic's, what was going to do? Did I do that? So send it to Dominic.
Oh, no, I haven't seen his grant. I'd like to see that.
And Sheriff Jenkins was going to too, and so he's like, oh, thanks, so he's seen that.
Well, and I think if we can just have a community conversation, work session with county court, that those individuals that are passionate about it can come and we can actually work through what we have versus what we might like to see and see if we can come up with.
And one of my comments would be, because Sheriff Jenkins and Deputy McLean both looked at the more recent one that Tim Smith provided, and they came to my office prepared. They really looked at it, they really had their comments and ORS stuff to talk about why these areas are a non-starter, but and so to me, the people who are so passionate about doing it, if in fact something like this isn't enforceable and wouldn't provide the protection that passing it, even if, if law enforcement says we really couldn't do this stuff anyway, then are you still trying to get more symbolism or not? If you really want it to be enforceable and you're learning that not so fast, not so easy to do, maybe won't do you still want to proceed? And if so, we'll have to see how far it gets, but my view on if the county court refers something to the ballot is that we, at least 2 out of 3 of us, vote because we think it's definitely something, put it to the voters now, it's ready to go. We've done our due diligence, let the people decide. But the last one it was misleading, and I would have felt that people would have put their trust in us. Well, they referred it to the ballot. I like Second Amendment protections, vote for it, and wouldn't have even have read it. And they would have had a false sense of security had it passed that would really be there, even if it didn't get challenged.
No, but it's important to avoid a false sense of security with that type of document.
Yeah, I don't want to mislead people.
It's got to.
And the embarrassment of you guys not having put something out there that's non-enforceable.
Right.
Make
We
sure
can't, that's
that
the bottom line, we
fits.
can't put something out there that goes against the law, or we can't endorse something that goes against the law. So how it's worded is
I would
fine.
like to see Dominic's
Yeah,
response, but I
totally
would
agree.
still like to offer a public work session to these individuals. Look at what we have, look at what's available in that document that might be language that we could be supportive of
Yeah.
and see,
There's parts that we
what
can.
kind of a
And
compromise.
there's parts we've probably already done in our resolution.
Well, and that's where I'd like to bring that back up to the surface.
I know Tim's bottom line is, your resolution has no teeth.
Teeth is hard to come by in a county level.
So, but
Well, neither does
Gretchen called me last week, they were having their meeting, and I think, did she call you?
She called everybody.
I was like, what? It was like in 2 hours.
What has Tim brought to you? Tim has brought us nothing. Officially, he's communicated with you two, but not me. I said,
That's
but,
right.
but nothing has come before the court officially and moved forward. Oh, she says, he wasn't going to be at the meeting tonight, I was just gonna try to fill in for him. I said, Pat, I can probably tell you more, because he's been communicating with her, but not me.
I basically I forget where I was that I didn't answer my phone, and when I
Yeah,
listened to
so
the
maybe
voicemail,
she called.
it was like,
That's what
can
I
you
told her.
straighten out all the misunderstandings at our meeting tonight in 2 hours? I'm like, no. And she said, I'll be in touch, so I said, I'm waiting for her to be in touch. I
It was for
I
that
wasn't
meeting.
available.
It was for that meeting within an hour or two, so.
Yeah,
No,
I was like,
I have to say,
no.
nothing's officially come to us, Gretchen, so I can't.
Yeah, but if we officially
Right.
schedule
And I did tell her
something
he'd
in
sent us
there,
something, and we had sent it on, and there are still some problems.
Yeah.
It's
I really
Very
think
much
a
not
work session
hiding anything.
would help
it'd be goodwill for all of us.
clarify and more understanding amongst the people who are caring about this and ourselves as well.
And it's got to meet letter of the law, or whatever, it's got to meet the constitutional. Right.
We can't go around.
So do you want to pick a date or something?
Yeah, what is?
Dates are crazy.
Let's see.
And like I
Budget
say,
dates don't start till
March
April,
looks
right?
pretty ugly for me, but I'm gonna, so it's better just 'cause it doesn't matter.
Anybody have anything 31st?
No, I'm available. Look at County College at one.
I'll be.
How's it going? So, well,
It's good. A lot of it was legislative,
updates and
updates and I'm trying to get people up to speed with the staffers each handle with the legislature.
you know more than I do.
Yesterday's
I don't remember.
Well, a lot of you already know who does what. and
Just trial and
what
error.
Major topics are that they cover.
It's an evening thing. Morning's okay, put it that way, so.
Yeah, evening might be more conducive to the public.
I'm totally open on February 1st, if that's what you want.
In here, like, early evening, 5:30-ish.
We'll shoot for that.
Yeah.
And we can get it out to you.
Just have it be around the table?
And then we show up.
Oh, okay.
We don't want, we
Try
don't
to
want
have
what
a
we had,
RSVP.
we don't want what we had in the courtroom that day. I don't. I mean, we want
All right.
those that are real serious about working out something that
The
will pass.
details.
The details, so we don't, and if you get a whole bunch of people, then ain't gonna work.
And it'd be nice if we
So,
have
4 or 5 of them.
the preservation ordinance, whatever their latest draft is of the SASO, and,
Yeah, ask all parties to review all the documents prior and
Yeah.
come in fresh.
Yeah, and keep a reasonable amount of people here and downstairs.
I'll do some calls and try to make some specific invitations to individuals and then see if they have anybody else that would be.
yeah, tell them it's not a
Set.
town, it's not a town hall thing.
No.
It's a work session,
A
we're
work
gonna be at the
session.
Trying to
table
work
with
to
documents.
work with you.
Talking about stuff, okay. Good, I think that's all I had as far as, oh, and then have you had time to put out, any invitations for people interested in being on the elected officials compensation board, or we're thinking on
Talked
that?
about that yesterday. I don't know if they got it out or not. And they did get out, because we have, they did get an ad out for a budget committee. And Holly has her letter in for reappointment.
Oh,
We
okay,
still
okay,
have to put it out.
okay.
I'm not sure where it's at. We talked about it, I don't know if that's yet. I'll follow.
Okay.
So that wasn't really, it's an open position, but we do have somebody currently looking to help that.
Holly's got a few policies we've given her to work on. I can't tell you what they are. And things that have come up, Deanna and I have talked about it, we need a policy on this. So Holly, offered at that one meeting.
Yeah.
So she's working on it.
Evaluations
And
was
then,
one of
and
them.
all these will come before us. Except
That's good, I was pleased, I poked my head into
Deanna's some
Deanna's, and
support
she
with
was
that.
showing me stuff she's been working on, which is nice.
we have So negotiations are going on. We're just getting to where they're starting to ask for some things. Probably next meeting we'll have executive session. We won't be done, but at least I can take what they're asking for. And we'll work on saying yea or nay so far. We haven't really got there. One of- Part of the discussion is leading to another policy that will be good for the county. That we're clear on when it comes to sick time. Just so everybody.
Protocol.
Normal stuff
Right,
that
normal
needs to
stuff.
be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's great, that's not exciting stuff, but it's important and hard stuff, and some people don't like change, but it's overdue.
The negotiations have been, Jared does a good job. And some of these their stuff hasn't changed for 10 or 12 years in these contracts. New ORSs and new FIMLA and OFA. So a lot of it's just been getting the details right. The few things that are gonna be bargained on either way. It's gonna come out of course wages and insurance and the typical stuff. We haven't got there. We probably had at least 3 bargaining sessions, but ask me. So it's very slow. And we haven't had any with the deputies yet. Their first one's next time. So doing 2 at the same time, it does take some time. And working on budgets, that's my life right now.
Well, not regarding the negotiations, but how's the 911 doing? Are they still needing Suzanne Settle to help them? I mean, when is that going? When are they gonna get wind about that?
Well, they were, but then we had a disciplinary measure come into place.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We had to go around with her. So somebody has had a hearing
Okay.
with their union and are on paid leave, I don't know if it's that.
That's a
Should
little,
come to close, here pretty soon, but it does cause us pulse down, frustrating.
another topic, I really appreciate Nick Calvin's email updates to us, and I think he makes the right calls on, he's put in a tough spot, not getting that kind of response from the state that he needs to.
Looks like the house they're in is gonna sell, so he's gonna be looking for a place to live.
I know that there's some people from the Forest Service meeting from Montana and somebody in contact with me.
It sounds like it's sold, they had a year lease. It sounds like it's sold now, so.
That's tough. Changing market here. That Harney Homes. How's that? Is there more?
No, I got an email from an individual community, why are you doing this?
You know,
Why are you putting this land, why are you donating it? It's one piece of, one lot to jumpstart a project.
Put it back in the tax rate.
then the private sector, you know,
And hopefully, there's more lots around it that people can put their lot, some will build another one, what a new neighborhood go in. Just do one, I mean, really, that's all my intent is.
I'm proud of all the local cooperation and initiative that people are taking to try to help our housing situation. The state doesn't have a program to help us. We don't need the help in affordable
Yes,
housing at this point.
Yes, they do, affordable housing.
Pardon me?
Yes, they do, it's called affordable housing. That's
Yeah.
not what we need.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, our market is not ever gonna get healthy unless we can get some of those middle income houses up. We don't have a grant program for that, so we're trying to grow our help ourselves, and it's slow, but I'm really pleased with the community for trying to solve a problem we have.
So, I don't know yet, May 19th is the court date. We were going to go to South Carolina. My daughter's husband's mother is turning 80. We've never met any of his family, I know one sister he met. Then it was off because of COVID, because we don't want to expose her to stuff. But well, now the CDC saying if you ever had your shots, and blah, 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 you can. So we might be back on again. So I would leave after court, fly out there. My daughter wants to drive. And Cheryl will drive with her, and I'll ride back with them. So I'd be gone the whole, from the 20th to the end of the month. Hopefully we know this weekend.
I make a lot of changes, Kristen.
Can I send you
Sure. You go right ahead. There's that extra, if needed, budget board meeting would be at 26th, so that might have to move.
But it was an extra anyway.
It
so
was an extra, so
we
hopefully,
can have it
hopefully we
done
move right along this
prior.
year. Yeah, but, I don't know, I told Cheryl, we've got to make a decision. And Sarah's husband's friends gave him some timeshare thing at some big place at Myrtle Beach, where we would stay.
Sounds really fun.
I never been back there, and then drive home through the south, that's where my dad lives.
Awesome.
Maybe, maybe not, but just so you guys were like, good.
I've driven this country many times, mostly by myself, but I would still stop at the tourist places by myself. I went to the Grand Canyon by myself. I was like detoured up and see the Grand Canyon. Oh, it's cool.
I have a question on our local aging, community and aging agency council. Is the senior center considered our local, or do we have
Area
an
agency.
area one?
No, we have it here. Area agency,
Aging.
yeah. And so it's Angie, it's a senior center. Mount Airy County has one that's in trouble and being threatened to be closed down and taken over by a team. Pretty good.
What are they doing wrong?
Over there, I don't know, the state will not quite pull the pin yet. They keep giving chance.
So how would that affect our capacity? I mean, obviously, it's all pass-through funding currently
Right.
anyway, but
How could we deliver
They-
she
services
seems like
better
she's,
than
you
them?
know,
It's the directors, the leadership.
Oh.
They would still have an office over there. But it would be over. That's how it used to be. We used to have the community action agency here. And past directors didn't want it and gave it up, and then that's hurt us.
Yeah.
Now we get little bits.
I mean, 'cause there's a veterans program that's available that isn't requested from this area. It's called Directive Home Care. And my folks can, are on it overnight ago. But if they move over here, it's not available because there's not a contract from our Council of Aging for Boise VA to provide the program in this area. They even tried to tell my folks that we didn't even have an area of a
Would they
council here. And so it's something that apparently has to come from here, be asked for at this level back to Boise, because Boise, even though they're aware of it, won't communicate down. And so that's where I'm just.
So Council on Aging is what you're.
Yeah, that they administer it through,
So I have a
fun.
senior center board meeting tomorrow.
okay.
Send me an email.
I'll send you an email with the
It's kind of what-
information, because
what-
we've
yeah.
been working through Wyden's office and also Senator Crapo's office on this issue, and they've been in contact with Boise VA, and Boise VA is like, we only do it with 8 people over here in the Treasure Valley, and we don't want to put any more on our local. And it's like Salt Lake's catchment does 200 people for
Now,
this
now
program.
this might
because
not be
it's a
what you
program.
want, but it, you know, as far as the VA centers, there's Boise and there's Portland, right?
But we fall under the Boise
Okay, all
catchment
right,
here,
okay,
and
just
so
wanna
we're
make sure.
supposed to work through them because we're in
Okay.
their catchment here. If we were in the other catchment, then it's another conversation. We're trying to apply pressure to them to get it here, because I'm sure there's other veterans here locally that could benefit from this particular program.
Bring it up to the board meeting, and they can pull it out. Right. And then we meet about every 2 months, so.
Yeah, because I've had my mom talk to a guy here locally, he didn't even know about the program. And it's one of those, unless your catchment kind of participates in it, you don't know about it. But it is out there. It's a great work for veterans that need it.
Okay, learn something every day. You mentioned it too.
Well, and we've been working through the details of why is it not available, but it's not federally mandated currently, it's just strongly suggested.
I'll just throw this in case she words off that.
So we are adjourned at 12 noon. That worked.
Right.
Thank you, public.
Yep. Just glad to see you and advertise the budget board with position.
Yeah.
Well, we might get more than one applicant, I have a feeling. So, I don't know.
Really?
I think Judy Irwin would also like to get on it,
Oh,
which would
really?
make Pete smile.
Because she thinks we